Have you ever wondered who we are, where we come from, and where we are going? Why our existence's purpose is something that surely troubles not only you, but all of humanity. Let's ponder and explore in today's video, who are we? This nagging question must have arisen since primordial times, when humans first became aware of their existence in this life and within the scope of each of our lives. It seems to have originated from some distant moment that we scarcely remember, yet it continues to haunt us relentlessly until the end of our days. Who are we, coming and going in this life, yet not knowing the reasons and purposes? Who are we that suddenly exist from nothingness like a creature full of aspirations? Who are we that eventually have to abandon this life as an inevitable outcome while still fervently cherishing affection and love? Why are we born? Why must we die? And why, if unable to answer such questions, we will never truly understand the real meaning of our existence in this life? We will also fail to grasp the significance of our actions, whether aimed at pursuing a noble life or merely striving for a better one. However, there are various ways to answer such questions. For example, one approach could be to provide the information the questioner seeks. Those who endeavor to answer in this manner construct some kind of image, suggesting, for instance, that humans are created by a divine power. If one accepts this, it means we already have answers to the aforementioned questions. Yet, if there is a need for further related inquiries, perhaps we must wait until we encounter the divine. However, it seems that in the 21st century, human civilization no longer accepts such imaginative answers. We require a more reasonable understanding to avoid stagnation, feeling like we are living a meaningless life, just waiting to depart without understanding the reasons or where we will go. The effort to answer by providing the sought-after content fails. Another approach is to turn to analyzing the essence of the question itself. If the questioner can recognize the irrationality within the question, they may no longer seek the answer, thus feeling satisfied. The Buddha chose this method of response, analyzing the essence of the question, who am I, and pointing out that there is no real I. When there is no I, the question, who am I, becomes illogical. Simply put, it's because one cannot create any conceptual representation to describe something non-existent. Therefore, we cannot be anyone. When the self fundamentally doesn't exist and a series of related questions are collectively answered, we don't need to wonder about the coming and going of a non-existent self. Instead, more appropriate questions arise, such as how a non-existent self can exist in our perception as something very real, and how a world with such non-existent selves can operate according to very real principles, forming the interdependent connections of all sentient beings in this realm. Answering such questions becomes a process of active contemplation, reflecting back to the root of existence itself and the causes and effects governing all phenomena. The Buddha repeatedly emphasized that the tree of each sentient being is a composition of specific aggregates, constituted by the 5 aggregates, each aggregate itself being a collection of various elements. These aggregates include form, sensation, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. Among these, form comprises the sounds, sights, smells, tastes, and tactile sensations combined with our senses like eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and body. All of these are necessary conditions to form what is called form. Form also includes our sensory organs and their objects. Because all are composed of matter, these are observable phenomena. Sensation arises when the body encounters external objects, such as pleasant or unpleasant emotions, like joy or sorrow, craving or aversion. Perception involves discerning and differentiating objects after contact, distinguishing between what is long or short, big or small, green or yellow, white or red, and even discerning between good and evil, or right and wrong. Intention encompasses all mental activities or reactions of consciousness generated after contact and discrimination, such as preferences, dislikes, praises, or criticisms. It is a complex factor because of its extensive scope and its potential to affect other mental and physical activities. While aggregates like form, sensation, and perception are observable phenomena, consciousness merely encompasses the function of awareness, manifesting in all senses such as seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and thinking. This analytical breakdown provides a true perspective on what is called the self in this life. Each element analyzed above manifests very truly in our ordinary perception, but reveals a fragile, impermanent, and unreal nature when illuminated by the light of profound wisdom. Thus, we can see that the results of cultivating insight will help us recognize the deceptive nature of the assumed self that we have always viewed as a singular entity, real, substantial, and enduring. The Buddha called this true perception the insight into non-self, meaning the absence of a self, an existing and independent entity in reality. When we realize the deceptive and impermanent nature of this assumed self, we gain the ability to abandon all attachment, nurturing, and protection for a non-existent self. Answering the first question, whether one can cultivate a pure mind without relinquishing the assumed self, poses a very practical doubt. However, it has already been answered in real-life experiences, which in turn dispels doubts in the remaining questions. In reality, if indeed we can find genuine happiness by cultivating a pure mind without abandoning attachment, then the need to cultivate non-self would be unnecessary. But the truth is otherwise. Attachment clouds our minds from the moment any thought arises, whether it is a virtuous thought. For example, when you undertake charitable acts, attachment will also give rise to expectations, comparing oneself with the recipient and generating feelings of loss when giving up possessions that were once ours. Once the charitable act is completed, the mind will initiate thoughts of anticipation, expecting reciprocation in the future due to the goodness done. These subtle thoughts arise naturally from attachment, and we rarely discern them. Hence, virtuous actions are challenging to initiate, and even if we manage, their positive effects are severely restricted. In the Diamond Sutra, this is called the fault of the mind, grasping at self and other. Our minds make a clear distinction between the giver and the receiver, and this distinction gives rise to the thoughts mentioned above. When we clearly see the deceptive nature of the five aggregates, we also realize that all phenomena are dependent on conditions, and none truly exist on their own. From there, we can let go of attachment, craving, and the assumed self that does not truly exist. By doing so, When practicing virtuous deeds such as generosity, forbearance, or the six perfections, we will not be hindered by attachment to a self. Through direct experience, the Buddha repeatedly emphasized that clinging to a self is the root of countless mental afflictions. Each of us can personally experience this truth by reflecting on the process of the arising of various mental afflictions, such as desire, anger, jealousy, and envy. If we lack attachment, which serves as the foundation for such thoughts, they will not arise. Even when these thoughts do arise, if we know how to meditate on non-self, we will immediately perceive a reduction in their power over our thoughts, actions, and speech. We will have more choices and decisions rather than being constantly driven by unconditioned desires like craving, aversion, or jealousy. In summary, the questions raised here are not theoretical inquiries, but practical aspects to help each individual live a more peaceful, meaningful, and happy life. These questions are also the keys to unlock the door of wisdom, leading us to the path of liberation from suffering. To understand the self is to understand the nature of reality itself, and to understand the nature of reality is to transcend suffering and attain true peace and happiness. Therefore, let us contemplate these questions deeply and cultivate insight into non-self, the path to ultimate freedom and happiness.